Hi there, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawalker, your host. Today we are going to be doing a review of this brand new Ministry album, Moral Hygiene. Ministry, mainly known as one of the biggest industrial acts of the late 80s and 90s, have had a continuously changing sound from their early days doing synth pop to their prime with heavy industrial, with some more modern speed metal stuff, and even more recently industrial sludge output. In my opinion, the years have not necessarily been the kindest to Ministry, and a lot of the work they've done in the past decade has had lukewarm reviews at best. The time of writing and recording for this is September 30th, and it seems that the album, Moral Hygiene, has just recently gone live, so I'm going to go through this one with first impressions. Let's see what Al Jourgensen has been up to. The first track on this album is Alert Level. I'm fairly familiar with this track as this song was released as a single last year. I thought it was a fairly decent step in the right direction for Ministry's modern sound, but it sounds a bit half-baked for a song that clocks in at like 6 minutes and is the longest song on the record. They're really reaching into the right places for this one, but they're clearly pulling influence from some of their slower mid-90s output, and maybe even from some of like the 80s side projects that Al was associated with. But to me, one of the main glaring issues is that Al Jourgensen is just not really a very good lyricist, or at least has not been for some time, as his approach to serious topics makes the whole thing kind of seem like a joke. Not to mention, paired with the painfully obvious Greta Thunberg samples and general lazy sampling, this song comes off as, a bit of a dud, and makes me worry a bit for what's to come. With all of that being said, the main riff for this song is pretty good. It's simple, but it is pretty catchy. Next up is the second single from the record, Good Trouble. Upon release, I did think this was a much better track than Alert Level. I think that there was a bit more thought put into the overall writing and structure of this song. It is kind of fun that they are absolutely self-sampling on this track, pulling out some harmonica parts from the title track from Filth Pig for one of the bridges. The sampling on this song, thankfully, is a lot better. This feels like a bit of a blend between Ministry and that kind of Surgical Meth Machine release that they did back in 2016. The one thing that I think is already very noticeable is that Al doesn't really have more than a couple of ways of delivering his lyrics on the majority of the more recent Ministry tracks or albums. He kind of just shits out his lines with like this empty-handed force. Or does the exact same kind of yell that he's been doing for years, it seems. And it seems that when Ministry does change things up, when they make an effort to really go out of their comfort zone, they generally do a pretty good job, but instead they kind of just let the vocals and a lot of their different elements stagnate. They haven't really evolved here, and it's very, very telling. The third track on the record is Sabotage is Sex, which starts off as a far more promising track than the first two songs on this album. As far as I'm concerned, this should be the first track on the album. We get Jello Biafra on vocals, which makes this track feel like a modern-day lard cut, which really kicks ass. The juxtaposition of Al's performance with Jello's is incredibly jarring, as Jello just really crushes and owns this song. Also, the instrumentals here are such high tier, it's hard to even think that this song is a modern Ministry track. This could easily have been a cut off of a lard record from like 20 years ago, or off of like a Revco song from 10 years ago. Al does have some vocals on this track that, when combined with Jello's singing, does make a really good pairing, but this by far and away is the absolute best Ministry song that we've gotten in the past 10, maybe even 20 years. This is a great, great song. Next up is Disinformation, the intro of which leans pretty hard on some like fake news samples, which are maybe used a little bit too heavily. Al does seem to have a bit of a different approach to his vocals on this track, which is really refreshing. The main issue, I think, is that the subject matter of the song is a very, very tired subject. I get that the sentiment on this one, but the on-the-nose writing style that Al Jourgensen has just comes off as weird and goofy every time. I'll give it to him. It's a little bit better as far as their modern political writing goes, but man, I feel like Al just needs to really, add some more nuance into his writing. Not even that I disagree with him, it's just like, you gotta, have a different approach to this. It can't just be so on the nose all the time. It's getting weird. Next, we've got a cover of Search and Destroy by the Stooges, which is actually really damn good. I loved the slowed tempo and the big swinging groove. As far as covers go, this is one of the best covers Ministry has done. The slowed down guitar solo at the beginning of the track has some really killer effects dropped on it. The bass is full, and Al, despite still not changing his approach to his vocals on this one, does a pretty great job. The next track is Believe Me. This song kicks off with a bouncy drum line and a great bass line. I can't help but notice that the guitar part is incredibly close to the notes played on the song Sober by Tool, which is a bit of a coincidence, but now that Paul D'Amore is a member of Ministry, it's a little bit suspect. With that being said, though, this track is significantly better than what I would have expected, presenting the unexpected break of this weird acoustic groove right in the middle of this kind of alternative industrial metal song. The sampling is still not amazing, but there are some noticeable improvements. The song still feels a bit padded for its runtime, but considering we're actually getting some catchy segments in the song, it's really not all that bad. This is one of the better cuts here. Track 7 is Broken System. The intro for this song kind of reminds me of the intro to World War III by KMFDM, but maybe with a bit more of like a Middle Eastern vibe instead of that kind of dueling banjos vibe. I do think this song is pretty in line with some of the mid-2000s Ministry songs, though definitely a lot slower tempo-wise. Al Jurgensen being a kind of prophet of doom on this track gets really tired really quickly, and with more of this like lazy writing combined with this lack of changing very much up in the song beat-wise, this ends up being another dud to me. Don't hate this song, but it's really not an essential track here. I would probably just have left it on the cutting room floor. We Shall Resist is the next song on the album. The synth work for this intro is pretty good, but the samples come across as very much overly dramatic and even comical, with Al Jurgensen faintly screaming in the back of the track. It just kind of makes the entire thing sum up what listening to the majority of this album is like. Al Jurgensen does these like really goofy chants on this song too, which I mean, it's not helping anything at this point, so why not just go in on like the cheese factor? So, you know, why not just go over the top? Just keep it going. It's rough. The 9th track is Death Toll. This song starts a little bit more glitch heavy with some strong groovy beats. It's a lot more on par with kind of some Revco material beat-wise. I do like the sample on this one, as the televangelist they're sampling here is so incredibly into his own shit that it sounds like a classic era Ministry sample and not something from the modern day. Obviously, with the topic on hand for that sample, it's, you know, a very much a modern sample, but it's exactly the right way they should have used that sample, and I think, you know, it's maybe not the best one, but it's pretty good as far as this album goes. The final song, TV Song 6, is, well, exactly in line with the series of songs this track is a part of. Super high BPM, glitch heavy, but pretty much entirely unnecessary, and even on this album it's a bit much. I do like that they have a track here that there's just really no effort put into, so that you can at least be thankful that the entire album wasn't as weak as this ending track. So as far as final thoughts go for this album, I definitely was not blown away, but I did enjoy myself more than I expected to. My hopes for new Ministry material has not been high for a very long time, so at least the surprisingly good moments we got in this album hit a bit harder. I absolutely love Sabotage's Sex. I'm going to have that one on loop for a while. The cover of Search and Destroy is great, and as for the rest of the album, I could probably take or leave most of it. At this point, though, in their career, I think without some good, serious reinvention, we are not going to get a good, consistent Ministry record. Just good songs every once in a while from these releases. I think that, you know, the best thing to come out of this is the possibility of a new Lard album. So fingers crossed for that. Hygiene is a solid 3. Thank you all so much for watching. I just hit 250 subscribers and I couldn't be more thankful to all of you. I've been thrilled with the feedback everyone has given me, and I will continue to do my best for all of you. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and maybe consider subscribing to the channel to see more videos like this one. My Reverb store is still up and is being updated regularly, so check that link out in my description. And last but not least, follow the show on Instagram at On The Flip Side Show. Thank you all so much again for watching, and we'll see you on the flip side.